All right, everybody, or all five or six of you that will probably watch this. I originally had a little different idea. I'm not 100% sure where this is going to go because I know I said in the last one, oh, we'll get into, how you go about these things and what all it entails to do this kind of work, to self evaluate and introspect, right? And I probably will do some of that in this. I almost recorded a video a few days ago, and I ended up getting derailed. Some jokers out here fired up their lawn equipment, right? Decided I didn't feel like trying to clean that kind of audio up. But it gave me a chance to kind of move away from where I was at that moment, which that matters because I'd had a couple, 2 or 3 days of intense meditation, I guess is the best way to put it. I mean, I kind of had doing some of my work, and it varies. I don't necessarily meditate the same way all the time. I'm not like, this is how you do it. And, I mean, there's a lot of people who tell you the way to do these things in the right way, and it's this way or that way. And they're all useful mostly. I mean, some of these things are ridiculous, but generally speaking, any attempt at it is good, right? Uh, that's what I used to tell people back in the church days. Like, look, I don't care if you go to the church or not, if you how you go about all of this, like, just the only thing you need to do is talk. Like, talk to God. That's, if you can do that and be genuine, you'll be surprised what sorts itself out. And it's more or less the same thing here. I think there's a lot of goofball stuff, but generally speaking, if your intent is sincere, you'll come up more or less in the right area, right? It's not necessarily a regimented prescription you follow, right? But the point of this is the meditations I had been in, I'd ended up really dredging some of the more difficult things, right? And that's the trick, of course, is you have to be willing to get at the things that are extraordinarily uncomfortable, the things you're afraid or terrified to look at. And it doesn't magically just, well, I'm better now after you do it. That'd be cool, but it doesn't always work that way. In fact, it almost never works that way. So, like I said, this was a few days, and I'm still going to be kind of poking at this particular area a little bit. But I found just it had dark, right? And I want to make sure that you know that it's not all um, you know rainbows and fractals and things like that. You know what I'm saying? You're not just automatically going to have crazy visitations. 'Cause, I mean, people have those experiences, and I'm not discounting that. But I find most of these things are part of the same mode of engagement that most people use to interact with the field, right? The environment, I guess, not necessarily just three-dimensional, just consciousness, I guess. And I'm going to work on, I'm going to make up a new word for that, because that word's so played out, but I might just make up my own. Anyway, the video I was going to make would have been probably a little, I don't know, rough. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I was in kind of an odd place. I wasn't negative, right? That's the thing, is it's not necessarily that I'm walking around, oh, woe is me. No, but you're facing these things, and you're taking a disassociative stance on them a little bit, in a way, because your consciousness, like your awareness of what you're looking at and what you're dealing with, is going to be, or needs to be, autonomously functioning from what you're feeling. And you're going to feel it, though, right? It's not going to just, oh, look at that over there, isn't that nice? No, I mean, it's going to hit you, and it's going to probably do it in the worst ways. But I didn't want to come on and be all blah 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 about everything, because I don't think that's productive. One, and two, that's not where I'm at. But now that I've had a few days away, and it's probably good that they started running the blowers and chainsaws. I didn't maybe need to do it right then anyway. But where we're gonna go, I guess, is going to be a little more sort of just expounding on my personal position, rather. I don't know if that'll show up on the mic or not. The Armory's over there shooting stuff. My personal position, right? As opposed to steps to take or methods to use. I mean, there's some methodologies that you can go to, but it's really going to be about finding that divisionary point, I guess, where you're able to take a cognizant view, even though you're emotionally engaged with it, right? It's going to be emotional. It's going to be just upsetting and painful in that sense. But if you are genuinely seeking, and your intent is resolution, you'd be surprised how your brain, your higher self, your spirit brain, right, will kick in, and you'll find it going, hey, that's not really us, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right, that's not me. Even though it feels like me, and it hurts like it's mine, and it weighs me down like it's mine to carry, but it's not. So I want to maybe just spend this time emphasizing this point. I've been thinking a lot since then too about my own intents over the years, and my time in the religious world, which I don't think was wasted. I know I criticize it a lot. I criticize atheism a lot too, because there's all a bunch of, they're both the same, right? There's not any real difference between them. We say two sides of the same coin all the time. It's a tired cliche, but you take any coin, and usually both sides of that coin look nothing alike. They're completely different images on either side. So that's why religion looks completely different than atheism. It's so different, but they're all doing the same thing if you get down to it. If you drill down onto what motivates, in both situations, it's almost always exactly the same. Which is why everybody gets all bent out of shape and yells and fusses and criticizes, and they don't always do that. Even people take the smug view. Well, I don't need to criticize this person because they're just wrong, and I'm above it, and I love everyone, even ones who are horribly, horribly wrong, and well, that's great. But my time in that world, and the points that I went through as I extracted myself from it, the extrication process was more than you thought, because I never thought I was really that connected to it, because I never had a real taste for the religiosity of the practice, right? And anyone who knew me back then would say that. And yet so much of what I believed or knew about the spiritual world or my spirituality still was gleaned from that place. And, at the time I thought I had it all very boiled down. I thought I had really stripped it away a lot, and it turns out I had more to do. And just for the record, I went through a whole process, probably around into my 20s, into my beginning of my 30s, where I had torn down so much of it that I had to take an honest view of the other side and go and look into, and that's the thing. You have to be willing to accept whatever you find, even if you hate it, and even if it ruins what you think is real. And so I looked into, well, here's what the scientific world says, here's what an atheist says, and is this true? And I had to sit and grapple philosophically, emotionally, with the idea of maybe there isn't a God, not in the way we think anyway. Maybe everything is just here. It's here because it is, right? But the thing I found is, at first, of course, it was horrifying, because I said you have to go in being willing to accept whatever the truth is, whether you like it or not. And that was a difficult one to maybe accept. I was like, all right, I'm willing to look. I'm willing to find what's there. And you get all the way to the edge, at least for me, all the way to that brink and that edge, and I had let go of all of it by that point. I didn't know if I believed in God or not anymore, right? But I found the same things, not just in myself, but in the world, in those philosophies, in those thinking spaces. I found the same things that I had just torn down and left, or even the things that I knew way back that I never took on, all those aspects. And I just say this because I want you all to know that it is going to be rough, and it can be painful, and you have to know that the truth is going to find its way if you are honest in your intent. And if you think, I've been at this, Mike, I do all this, and there's two things I can tell you. One is, if you've been at it and you feel like, there's no truth, I never find truth, I don't know what's true, that's because your intent's not open and honest. Probably you have some areas that you're shielding. You can't shield anything. You may not be aware of it. I'm not saying that you're purposely sabotaging yourself. In fact, I've spent mine almost half a century of life on this planet self-sabotaging without realizing I was doing it. But it's why. And the other one, is going to be fear. I guess I hate to say it that way, but there's, you know, I think arrogance in and of itself is a fear expression for reasons that, worry about some other time probably, but insecurity in what it is you actually think and believe, and fear to accept what you might find, you know. Having been down all those roads, and I'm not the only person that's done this, I'm sure. I mean, there's lots of people out there. There's a lot of books, all kind of books, all kind of videos, all kind of things out there. I mean, it's almost, I hate to say it this way, but it's almost like trauma is trendy now, right? It's just, you see a lot of the younger generations even talking like, oh, what's your trauma today? Well, here's my trauma. Hey, I'm so and so. This is my trauma. And, it's like, what? And the problem is, of course, that's not the actual root of the problem. We will use difficult circumstances, traumatic circumstances often to mask the bottom, What's really down there is going to be very difficult to get at. And I know I'm just really selling this to you, aren't I? It's going to suck. You're going to be miserable. Ha 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 ha. Because you're not really miserable. Like I said, I went, this recent one, this is kind of what prompted me to prattle. I know I'm rambling. Is that it's not miserable once you've confronted it. And you may have to confront it many times. But it's emotionally devastating. But you will realize that line, right, between real you and traumatized you, I guess. And I know, just from my own experience and being around people, every last one of you's walking around, with a program. Our personality is a program. The way we interact with the world is a program. It's not something that we just, this is who I really am. And no, none of that does it. How you dress, how you talk, what you look like, how you do your hair, none of that is you. None of that means anything intrinsically. Like, technically, you could say everything matters because it's all God, including the specks of dirt, including poo going down the toilet is important because it's all part of God. So yes, but in terms of you navigating this consciousness facet that you are embodying, none of that is important unless coming to the realization that it's not important moves you forward on your path, right? It's not that it can't serve a purpose, but it's not important in the way we think. It's not something we need, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's not important in the sense we need it or have to have it or that it matters to our internal self. You won't change who you are by changing your clothes. You won't change who you are by acting differently, right? And I know it's like, I try not to be gloom and doom, Not too much gloom and doom. But it's not. It won't be gloom and doom once you engage in it, right? And it's hard to explain. In some cases you might actually feel lighter, like you will literally feel like you are less burdened or put upon. And I said it doesn't just magically go away in one time, so persistence is required. And I guess what really drove me to even just make this senseless mess I just recorded, I said after going through all these things, I really just have been struck kind of processing all that I have learned and where I've come from, starting on this path all the way down. And then you learn so much about yourself, almost everything, about how you interact with others. I've said that before. Your interactions with other people, especially people you're close to, especially people in your inner circle, your family members or loved ones or whoever they are, your BFFs, if they're that, genuine. That's where you will learn about yourself, is interacting. And so I realized, as much as I was not my authentic self, in the sense, my true divine self, my higher self, I was being authentic to what I knew at the time, right? So, and that's not talking about bad behavior. Everything I've done plenty of terrible, terrible things in my life, but the negative behaviors are, of course, not our authentic selves. And maybe I'll make a whole nother video about good and evil and that. And there's a whole thing there that probably needs a little exposition. So, more like an explication, right? But the point is, I can see glimpses, right, of what was my, my heart, I guess, the core of my heart kind of leaking out a little bit. All those people I knew back then, especially, all the ones I knew from the church world stuff that I loved were great. And there's so many, though, that were outside that world. That was part of a thing for me. I was kind of 1 foot here, 1 foot there, so never entirely in either, never quite 100% accepted in either one. Not like reject. I'm not saying it was just mistreatment. I mean, I actually got more mistreatment in the religious world than I ever did out in the secular world, oddly enough. But I cared. I do still care, actually, about all of those people. And I think, oh, I hope maybe so and so will find these videos and just hear me talk about this stuff again, or they'll get something out. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're wonderfully set up now. Just so many of them. I have like names running through my head. I mean, I don't know if these people are even alive anymore or not. I hope so, right? But their journey is their journey, and I don't have a responsibility to alter their journey or to do anything of the sort. But I felt, after dredging up some really unpleasantly negative stuff that in meditations that would be soul crushing grade horror, right? I don't know if I could even articulate it entirely in a verbal sense. But I want these people to find their way out, I guess. I don't want people, stuck in the cave staring at the wall or lost in the maze. And I'm not saying I've completely found my way out of all of these things. I don't know. But I cared about all those people. And it was important to me at that time. I don't know if they knew it or not, or thought about it, and maybe they just thought, oh, Mike's a good guy, he's a nice guy. No, but they were all singularly important to the last. Even the ones I thought were jerks. And then you think, well, how much more is that individual important to God, to the God consciousness, to the source, to us as God facets incarnate, or how important should they be? One of the esoteric books that I've read over the years is one. It's funny too, because it's the kind of thing, most of these would have get you excommunicated in a heartbeat in the Protestant world, but there's one in that basically spelled out like, when you know you cross that threshold from here to there in your consciousness is, and what I mean by that is, I guess, I don't know, you can call it enlightenment or whatever makes you feel better. Is it simply said, when every person that you come in contact with, you honestly can say, the Christ light in me recognizes the Christ light in you, and you mean it, and it's sincere, no matter who they are. Right? That was one of the signs you may be getting somewhere, right? And that's a difficult thing sometimes, because there's a lot of people out there that we feel are undeserving of recognition. But anyway, I'm starting to go long here, aren't I? I will probably, maybe I'll just start right up again in a minute and make another thing. But all of you out there are important. You're important to me. And how much more important are you to the totality of God's heart if my little bit of that here, sitting in this chair, means it as much as I do? You can't even put your brain in that spot, right? Anyway, hope this wasn't too boring and meandering, and y'all be good.